The Bible is full of incredible stories about mystical creatures that go beyond the usual angels and demons. These beings are not mere inventions, but carry deep spiritual meaning, each telling a unique story of how God interacts with his creation. In this video, we will explore the top 10 mystical creatures described in the Bible. These creatures reveal mysterious and powerful aspects of the divine realm. One of these creatures is said to guard the entrance to paradise, holding a flaming sword and representing a profound spiritual truth. What mystical being could this be? Let's start with number 10, Behemoth. The Behemoth, described in the book of Job 40 verses 15 to 24, is a massive creature whose size and strength go beyond what humans can imagine, showcasing the incomparable power of God. This gigantic beast is portrayed grazing peacefully among the willows, symbolizing both incredible strength and earthly tranquility. Job is challenged to look at the Behemoth, which God calls the first of his creations, a being so powerful that no human can control it with a leash. This demonstrates God's supreme control over all creatures, no matter how powerful they are. The description of the Behemoth is filled with symbolism, representing not only the wild forces of nature, but also the idea of chaos that only God can manage. It highlights themes of domination and order in the natural world, showing that humans have limited power within the larger framework. The Behemoth symbolizes God's control over the physical world and his ability to maintain order in the face of chaos and destruction, reinforcing the message that nothing in creation is beyond God's control or understanding. The portrayal of the Behemoth in Job is not just to display divine artistry, but also serves as an important lesson, reminding Job and all believers of the limits of human wisdom and power. When God describes the Behemoth, he is emphasizing his unique ability to create and manage the immense complexities and forces of nature. This helps place human suffering and struggles in a broader divine perspective, showing that God's wisdom and power are far beyond our own. Number 9, Leviathan. The Leviathan, described in the book of Job 41, is a powerful sea monster that God uses to show his great power over the most chaotic and frightening forces of the universe. This creature can spit fire and has terrifying teeth, becoming a symbol of chaos and evil. By controlling the Leviathan, God demonstrates his supreme power. The description of the Leviathan in Job highlights not only the terrifying nature of the creature, but also God's ability to manage and tame even the wildest forces. The Leviathan is often seen as a symbol of chaos and is linked to other ancient stories about sea monsters that represent disorder. In the Bible, the Leviathan is more than just a physical being. It represents the ongoing struggle between good and evil. God's control over the Leviathan demonstrates his ultimate authority and the promise that good will triumph over evil. The image of the Leviathan appears in other parts of the Bible, especially in prophetic writings. For example, in Isaiah 27 verse 1, it is mentioned that God will punish the Leviathan, the gliding serpent, with his powerful sword, signifying the final defeat of all chaos and rebellion against God. This adds a deeper meaning to the Leviathan, portraying it not just as a sea creature, but as an important figure in the final victory of God's kingdom. Number 8, Locusts with scorpion tails. In the book of Revelation, there is a terrifying description of locusts with scorpion tails in Revelation 9. These creatures appear when the fifth angel blows his trumpet, signaling a new phase of God's judgment during the end times. These are not ordinary locusts. They come from the abyss and have the power to hurt people who do not have the seal of God on their foreheads. The pain they cause is compared to a scorpion's sting, extremely painful but not fatal, lasting 5 months. The locusts are described with a very strange and frightening appearance. They look like horses prepared for battle, with crowns of gold, human faces, long hair like women's, and lion's teeth. This mix of characteristics makes their appearance terrifying and shows that they are not just ordinary insects but special agents of punishment sent to hurt those who do not follow God. Their leader is the angel of the abyss, named Abaddon or Apollyon, meaning destroyer. highlighting their purpose of causing destruction. These locusts are part of a selective and precise divine judgment. Unlike regular locusts that devour all plants in their path, these special locusts are instructed to attack only certain people, leaving the plants untouched. This shows that God's justice is not random, but carefully directed at those who challenge him, with clear moral and spiritual purposes. Number 7. Satyrs. The Satyrs, mentioned in the book of Isaiah, are intriguing creatures in the Bible. Isaiah 34 verse 14 mentions them in a scene of judgment and desolation, where they call to one another in the ruined land of Edom, symbolizing complete destruction and divine punishment. Traditionally, Satyrs are represented as half-human, half-goat beings, similar to figures from Greco-Roman mythology, which adds a rich layer of symbolism to the Bible. In the Bible, Satyrs are seen as symbols of desolation and idolatry, appearing in destroyed and uninhabited places, showing that these areas have been abandoned by God due to people's sins. This fits with their mythological role as wild and unruly creatures, emphasizing the moral decay that leads to such divine judgments. The presence of Satyrs in Isaiah's prophecy adds a haunting and eerie atmosphere to the scenes of judgment. They inhabit cursed and desolate places, bringing a supernatural and mythological layer to the image of desolation, making the prophetic message even more impactful for its audience. Number 6. Cherubim. The cherubim are special creatures in the Bible, with important roles in various passages. One of their primary roles is guarding the entrance to the Garden of Eden with a flaming sword that moves in all directions, as described in Genesis 3 verse 24. After Adam and Eve disobeyed God, the cherubim were placed to prevent them from returning to paradise, signifying that they could no longer access the perfect garden where they once lived. In Ezekiel's visions, Ezekiel 1 and 10, the cherubim are described in great detail, with 4 faces, that of a man, a lion, an ox, and an eagle. This unusual description suggests that the cherubim can see and act in multiple ways, like humans, wild animals, domesticated animals, and birds. Each face represents a different part of creation, showing that the cherubim watch over everything and carry out God's plans in all corners of creation. When the tabernacle and later Solomon's temple were built, the cherubim were included in the design. Exodus 25 verses 18 to 22 and 1 Kings 6 verses 23 to 28. They were woven into the curtains and made of gold to overshadow the mercy seat, which was the cover of the Ark of the Covenant. This shows their role as guardians and witnesses of the covenant between God and the people of Israel. The cherubim also appear as part of a divine chariot in prophetic visions, with wheels full of eyes that can move in any direction without turning. This image, found in Ezekiel, suggests that God is everywhere, and the cherubim help carry out his will throughout creation. They are seen as mystical and powerful protectors who serve God in various ways. Number 5. Seraphim. The Seraphim are some of the most impressive creatures in the Bible, described as being above God's throne in Isaiah 6 verses 1 to 7. The name Seraphim means the burning ones, and these beings have 6 wings, 2 to cover their faces in reverence, 2 to cover their feet in humility, and 2 to fly. Their fiery appearance symbolizes purification and the light of God's glory, showing their role in keeping the divine presence holy and pure. The main role of the Seraphim is to continuously declare the holiness of God, singing, "Holy, holy, holy is the Lord of hosts. The whole earth is full of his glory." This constant proclamation highlights God's purity and distinction from all other things. These beings are the closest to God's presence, bearing the weight of his glory, making them one of the highest orders of celestial beings. Their chants echoing in the heavens demonstrate God's power and truth, which hold the universe together. In the story of Isaiah's prophetic mission, a seraph plays an important role. He touches Isaiah's lips with a live coal taken from the altar, symbolically purifying him from his sins and preparing him to deliver God's messages. This shows that the seraphim help mediate God's holiness and prepare those who are called to serve him. Number 4. Nephilim. The Nephilim are some of the most mysterious figures in the Bible, appearing briefly in Genesis 6 verses 1 to 4. They are described as the offspring of the sons of God and the daughters of men, suggesting a union between celestial beings and humans. This union resulted in the birth of the Nephilim, who are often portrayed as giants or mighty warriors, known for their great size and strength. The mention of the Nephilim introduces themes of interaction between the divine and human, crossing established boundaries and making the narrative more complex and intriguing. The existence of the Nephilim is one of the reasons given for the flood, which destroyed most of humanity. They are seen as a symbol of human disobedience and the disruption of the natural order, which leads to God's judgment. The Nephilim are often associated with violence and corruption, which is why their presence on earth is considered a significant factor leading to the flood. They represent the chaotic and rebellious forces that stand in opposition to God's order. The existence of such beings shows how sin can distort God's creation, leading to terrible consequences. Number 3. 4 living creatures. The 4 living creatures, described in Revelation 4 verses 6 to 8 and Ezekiel 1 verses 5 to 14, are incredible mystical beings that stand before God's throne. Each of the creatures has a different face, one of a lion, one of an ox, one of a man, and one of an eagle. They are covered in eyes all around, signifying that they are full of wisdom and knowledge, able to see everything in the universe. These creatures have 6 wings and continually worship God, saying, "Holy, holy, holy is the Lord God Almighty, who was, and is to come." Their presence around God's throne symbolizes God's dominion over all of creation, as each creature represents a different aspect of the created world. The lion symbolizes wild animals, the ox represents domesticated animals, the man stands for humanity, and the eagle signifies the birds of the sky. Together, they represent the fullness of creation worshiping God. Their role in Revelation is significant because they are involved in the opening of the seals that bring judgment to the earth. This shows that these creatures not only worship God, but also play an active role in carrying out His divine will, especially in the context of the end times. Their numerous eyes signify that they are all-seeing, knowing everything that happens in the universe. Their worship of God is a constant reminder that all of creation is under God's control and that everything that exists is part of His divine plan. Number 2. The Angel of the Abyss, Abaddon/Apollyon. The Angel of the Abyss, also known as Abaddon in Hebrew and Apollyon in Greek, is a powerful and fearsome being mentioned in Revelation 9 verse 11. He is the ruler of the bottomless pit and leads a horde of terrifying creatures during the end times. His name means destroyer, and his role is to unleash destruction on those who are not sealed by God during the time of judgment. Abaddon is not just a destructive figure, but also represents the aspect of divine judgment that is focused on punishing the wicked. His presence in the Bible is tied to the larger theme of divine justice, where both reward and punishment are part of God's plan for humanity. He leads the Locusts from the abyss, showing his role as a leader of supernatural forces that carry out God's will during the end times. Although he is associated with destruction, his actions are still under God's control, reinforcing the idea that even the most terrifying forces are subject to God's authority. The Angel of the Abyss represents a key part of the apocalyptic narrative, showing that in the end times, God's justice will be fully realized, and both creation and destruction will serve his purposes. Number 1. The Cherub with the Flaming Sword. After Adam and Eve were cast out of the Garden of Eden, a cherub was placed at the entrance of the garden to guard the way to the tree of life with a flaming sword that turns in all directions. Genesis 3 verse 24. This cherub symbolizes God's judgment and protection of the sacred, preventing humans from re-entering the garden and eating from the tree of life after they have sinned. The flaming sword represents the power of God's judgment, and the cherub's role is to enforce divine justice by guarding the way to eternal life, which had been lost through disobedience. The cherub with the flaming sword is a powerful image of how sin leads to separation from God and how divine judgment ensures that the holiness of God's creation is protected. The flaming sword also symbolizes purification, as fire in the Bible is often associated with cleansing and refining. The cherub's role is not just to prevent access to the garden, but to ensure that the holiness of the place is maintained until the time when humanity can be restored through God's plan of salvation. This being is one of the most iconic mystical creatures in the Bible, showing the intersection of God's mercy and judgment. The cherub's presence at the entrance to the garden reminds us of the consequences of sin and the hope of eventual restoration through God's grace. These 10 mystical creatures reveal the depth and complexity of the Bible's spiritual world, where symbols, divine beings, and God's cosmic order intersect in profound ways. Each of these beings has a role in the biblical narrative that goes beyond their physical description, pointing to greater spiritual truths that have been central to the faith of countless people throughout history. They remind us that the Bible is not just a book of human history, but a glimpse into the unseen realms that shape the world we live in.